Hello everyone, Ugodre here. This is Drinks and Mics brought to you by Nairametrics. I have as usual my fellow drinkers. To my right, the big man himself, Arnold of Green.
Hello everyone.
How you doing?
I'm well, hard to play.
And I've also got with me as well, Tunji Andrews to my left. What's up?
It's important to note that we start drinking before the show starts. So
Do you have to let that out?
no, it's important so that when we start on certain vibes, they understand. It's critical.
Oh.
Hi.
Okay. You all heard him. I mean, he's been drinking. I haven't. I've been all right. Of course, we have today a special guest as well. And today we have my very good friend, Egie Akpata, chairman of Skymark Partners. How you doing, brother?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good to see you.
Thanks for inviting me.
How's your week been?
Very busy.
All right, good. It's been a very busy week.
We've been
So
doing some
far.
calls with the guests. You know, yeah. This is going to be a good one. This is going to be a good one.
Yeah, so, I mean, for those who like to ask what we're drinking, this is basically gin and juice.
But one person is not having gin in his juice.
Yeah.
So in the
Guess
comment
who?
section, guess who the person is. At the end of the show, it's very...
I mean, I don't know how you find out, but I'm sure if you're smart enough, you know that, you know, whoever still has his head together is
The
probably
most
the one.
sober, the most sober individuals.
yeah.
The most
All right, guys,
sober.
we will go right straight into it. It's Valentine week, and I mean, like, I don't know if you guys didn't get the memo. I mean, you didn't get the memo because
I
Valentine
did
week
because
of
is-
traffic.
What memo is it?
Traffic
No, that's not the
yesterday.
memo. What memo is it? Valentine's week memo. There's something you're meant to do on Val's Day. Like,
Get cards and flowers.
no, just there's got to be a touch of red around you.
Ah,
Oh.
you haven't read around. Oh, sorry.
Oh.
course.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
even how even
Father's Day
Of course.
special.
I mean, Tunji has a little bit of touch
Yeah,
of red.
yeah,
I mean, when
red
he's
shade.
sitting on his red.
Oh, okay.
Eggie.
My
I guess it's just me. I mean, come on, red.
Sorry, sir. Clearly, I don't have a Valentine.
God, obviously
Clearly, I don't
not.
have a Valentine.
Obviously not. I don't need to Valentine, by the way.
That's why.
So, guys,
I like
I've got a
peace.
Val question, though. Of course, you know, Drinks and Mics is basically about, you know, market, economy, and money.
Yeah.
So, my question is, and I want to start with you, Tunji. No. I'll start with Egie. Egie is the guest here. Egie, if you decide now to look back, how much would you say you spent on Val on an average every year? Like, how much did you spend? Just think back.
I think I've lost track. I mean,
Dollarize it. Like, how much?
dollarizing it makes it a bit complicated because you know the way Naira has been in the past 10 years. So, but it's probably a lot. But it's
Give us a
probably
figure.
reducing.
Like in a year. So would you say, you know, 100K, 500K, 1M, 10M? Like,
Depends on what you're adding. I mean, so, talking about materials or
everything. I mean, like the value of what you spend, plus the flowers that you buy, plus the gifts that you buy, plus the taking out, like that whole cost. I mean, men spend a lot on Val. I mean, I'm not saying women don't spend on Val, but I mean, you know how it is.
I'll say it's reasonable.
Reasonable.
Yes.
Ballpark figure.
I truly don't know.
So I think what
Tunji will know his
we
own
should
job.
do. No, me, I don't know.
Tunji,
that much?
I'm
Come
saying-
on,
no,
man.
no, not that much. Not that much. What I think we should do in the comment section is, what if you were to look at it, what would it buy? You know, would it buy a brand new? If everything over
So
your
the
life,
opportunity cost of
Would
Valentine's
it
Day.
buy, you know, would
I
it
like
buy a
that.
brand new car? Would it
Yeah.
buy a house? Would it just be a new bag? Would it be a laptop? You know, what would it buy?
I know.
Come on.
You gotta have a figure.
So listen, for me,
Okay, last year. Okay, I mean, you say you don't have anyone you see right now.
Jesus,
You're
don't
not
have
dating-
anyone last
You're not
year.
dating anybody right now. So last year, did you spend last year?
probably just dinner.
Dinner.
Right, yeah. So like I
200K, like
I pride myself as being a non-conformist, so I don't celebrate Valentine's Day on purpose because I feel like it's just it's commercialized. So love is commercial.
is that really why?
Clearly, I'm single.
You got too many houses on fire. So you better
So
those applications.
please don't expect any Valentine's Day anything from me, whoever you are.
So you didn't spend today on Valentine? Like no spending today?
No, I spend on my kids though.
Oh, that's
Oh.
beautiful.
I spend on my kids.
Yeah, that's nice.
So I tried to, especially with my daughter, I tried to get roses for her every Valentine's. I've been doing it for a very long time, and you know, So I do that for this year.
Beautiful.
I kind of realized I just do it for my daughter, and I didn't, so this year I was like, okay, I got chocolate for both of them.
Oh, that's nice.
This morning, and I was like, because I was like, okay, take this, take it to school, give it to your friends if they want, just merry. So pretty much, yeah.
Egie, what's the best Valde gift? I mean, now in this economy, like we're gonna give someone. If you're gonna advise a Gen Z,
House.
who's just getting into the game. I mean, Tunji just gave us an example earlier on before we started shooting of how he went into his supermarket and he saw two young ladies essentially and he was sorry for them. Just imagine the audacity.
No, I wasn't sorry. I felt like, so this young ladies, I saw them, in the supermarket just a few minutes ago, buying Valentine cards, and they had this plastic rose, and I kind of looked at both of them and I felt, whatever amount they are spending on these things would do a lot more for their lives than just, what they are spending it for. And I just felt,
you wanted to buy some GTCO stocks.
Changed. Like, Tunji used to be a lover man, but he's just changed completely. Egie, what would you suggest as that figure?
Well, I don't think I will suggest that is less about how much you spend, it's about how much time you spend.
You guys
that's beautiful.
No,
that's
not deflecting because you have
I love
someone
that.
No, they want something. They want gifts. They want money.
They
want like something like
somebody can send gifts to 3 people.
There you go.
It doesn't matter. They want
but it does. So for me,
you have to look at it. You have to look at it from the eyes of the receiver.
This thing you said, I saw something on Instagram where this real estate agent said the caption was, I want to buy a house for my wife and side chick, and then can you do it? Then the lady put a emoji with the zip across the mouth. So the person is buying the same property
for this. Yeah, and for me, gifts is about thoughtfulness. Is how much you know me, how much or you know the person, how much you've looked at them and studied them. It's not about monetary. It's not about value or money. It's not about money. So like you said, you can buy gifts for 3 different people. Well, how well do you know these 3 different people to get something that's specific to them? And that's what Valentine's Day should be about. Yes.
So I think that I'm not entirely sure, and this is me mansplaining, right? I always just look at gifts. I feel men tend to want the utility of the gift more in terms of how. So for instance, if I didn't have a belt, right, and you got me a belt on Valentine's Day, it will mean a lot more to me than if you got me a very expensive shirt. Because yes, I might have a lot of shirts, but I need a belt. So that utility.
Okay, can we just flip this a little bit? Because I really don't like how you guys are deflected. Let's just flip it a little bit. So, if you had to gift an investment,
boom,
to a woman in your life, what would that be? Let's start with you, Tunji. Gift an investment. The fact that he's thinking about it.
So it'll be the thing that is most on my mind in terms of investment right now.
Shares in our bar?
No, crypto.
Okay.
Not generally crypto for investment purposes, but just crypto to help the person understand how
what
crypto
kind of
works.
Crypto? Which crypto is this? Is it a basket of crypto?
Basket of crypto. Yeah. Just to be able to, kind of like a introduction into crypto 101. Like now you have it, understand how this thing works, follow it, at least see the price going up, know why the price is going up, know why the price is going up, going down kind of thing.
Egie, what investment would that be?
Depends on how much it is. I mean, probably something that is FX denominated, maybe units in a mutual fund, dollar mutual fund, or Eurobond itself directly.
I like the fact that you said FX denominated.
Yeah.
Similar to Tunji's as well. I don't know.
I mean,
boat or private jet.
Private jet. I wish I could. No, but I don't have a woman in my life, right? But for my son, and this
You
is.
keep announcing you don't have.
No, I'm not announcing. I'm just saying I had to think about it.
Very strategic.
I had to think about it. No, it's not strategic. But so my son turned 14 in last week, and what I did is I did exactly that. So I put it in a gold fund, SPDR, and I put in a long S&P 500 mutual fund. And those things you can just let it go. Just let it go.
Yeah, you just
let it go. Yeah, and that's so every year I've said to him, every year on your birthday,
we'll put some of this.
Put something aside. Yeah. Put it away there.
I think for me, there would probably be a dollar-based ETF. especially focused on likes of Nvidia stocks that are
Yeah,
going to drive
yeah,
the
yeah,
AI
gonna
growth. I
drive,
think
yeah.
that just I don't know whether it's the right time to buy them now, but I think that's what I'll do. But I think what people would prefer more as well here would probably be a house. I mean, can you imagine you're gifting a house?
Yeah, I want a house.
So
So
I
gift-
do.
so it's-
I might be in the minority, but I think there's some sort of bubble around a housing market right now.
what kind
I
of
don't
bubble?
know
As in,
why. It's really so the prices of houses has almost doubled or tripled in the last maybe 18 months.
Yeah, but if you dollarize it, it hasn't.
Yeah,
really
so
grown that
yeah,
much, so-
dollarize it, true. But it looks like a lot of it has just kind of moved side by side with the market. So yes, the new guys that are building might be able to. But then you've had your house like 2 years ago, which is a lot of houses, and you just moved your prices to those. And people are still buying it,
yeah, and the one that also takes me aback is rental. There's no rental yield with properties here, but
rental yield is around 5-6%.
But when I look at why and how rent increases here, it shocks me because if you're telling me if I'm a landlord and I took a mortgage for this and my mortgage repayments are going up, I need to take my rent up, that would make sense. But if I don't have repayments on this property, I'm just taking it up because my costs have gone up. I always wonder why.
Yeah.
It's something that I want to have a conversation with. Why has your rent why has the rent doubled? And you're saying because of effects, right? But what costs?
House you
there's
built
no
12 years
mortgage, this is
ago.
cash.
Well, the
So
opportunity cost, right? So if you check even in this area, take Lekki 1, I mean, whatever rents you're paying now, a fraction of what they were in dollar terms.
Exactly.
50 years
That's
ago.
really what drives it.
Even the house prices.
At the
I
end
mean,
of the day,
house-
because-
so what?
So house prices are like half what they were in dollar terms
Yeah.
15 years ago.
So you're saying the rent is tracking the
No, I'm
dollar
saying that
price of the
rents
house?
are- the dollar rents are a fraction of what they used to be.
Okay.
So they rent
Yes,
Yeah, but
yes,
100%. But the naira is still going up, and I don't care about what dollar rents are because I'm paying my rent in naira.
Yeah, but
But why have you doubled my rent?
Maintaining that house,
Exactly.
you have to dollarize
It's
it
about
because you
opportunity
bought most
cost.
of it.
So the service charge should go up, not the rents, because the maintenance of the house goes into the service
if you
that
look
I
at
pay.
a PPP perspective, I've built the house, right? I want to recoup my investment on the property, or at least I want to make it worth my while. And it's possible that I don't even live in Nigeria, right? I probably live in the UK, right? And part of that rent does something for me. Maybe it's just take care of my basic Nigerian needs, right? And if these costs have gone up, so maybe I take care of my old mom, I take care of this, and all those costs have increased. It just kind of.
But what happens when the rents increases higher than wage growth?
No, so hold on. So,
Right,
so there's a
this
very,
bubble.
I think
Okay.
there's a more simplistic explanation
Okay.
for this. So imagine that you're a retiree and your basic income is your rental income, right? So 2023, January, your rent, you were getting 1 million per year for rent, which equates to about 8,000 a month. So that's fine for you at that time. Fast forward 2024, you've seen fuel prices go up, you've seen electricity prices go, you've seen everything around you basically double.
1 million
You're
is
not gonna
about
charge 1 million
500
anymore.
Fuel is not double. It's much more than that.
It's more, exactly.
Yeah.
Triple, quadrupled. So you can't still charge 1 million.
I can't believe we're on the
Because
side
it's
of
not-
landlords.
I'm sure
Anyway, guys, we
I
gotta
thought you
move-
guys would be with me on
We
this.
gotta move on to the next.
No, but it's fine. This was never the plan. So it's just something that's always been on my mind. It's just the rental,
Yeah.
the rates
No,
of
but
rent,
if you look at it,
and then there's no wage growth.
I
And
believe that a lot of people who buy property, at least in this kind of areas, are usually, a lot of them do not live in Nigeria. Forget those ones who probably bought it out of illicit means. I'm talking about people who genuinely want to invest back in Nigeria and put money. They are also using it for other things. So if I'm in the UK, my costs in the UK have also gone up. My cost of maintaining my life in Nigeria has also increased. I would pour that on you.
All right, guys. We're still drinks on mics. I just want to ask you, what do you think is the best investment to get for someone for Valentine? And then, of course, how much have you spent for Valentine on an average annually over the last, let's say, 5 years? We'll move on, guys. The US.
That was a very sensitive topic. Everybody was just very careful around it.
The US inflation numbers came out during the week. I think 3% January compared to 2.9% in December, and that kind of got a lot of people
Yeah.
worried.
yeah,
I just want to get your take. Let me start with you, Egie. What's your take?
I mean, those
Cause for
mon-
concern for us here?
Not really. The only link to what we do here, in my opinion, is the impact on the US 10-year Treasury, and it's not been material because that impacts the Eurobond yields for the Eurobond universe of Nigerian corporate Eurobonds, right? And if you check in the past 2 days, there's been a rally. The prices have actually gone up. So there seems to be some, I won't say disconnect, but it's not as worrisome for at least for this world we're in over here.
Not even long term. I thought the whole play this year was if interest rates go down, then at the end of the day, that is net positive for us in Nigeria because, we could start attracting capital flows. But now that you're seeing inflation kind of sticky in the US, that could probably delay the Fed's decision to cut rates quicker.
But the capital flows have already happened without, with or without Fed cutting, with or without CPI moving in any direction. The capital flows have already happened.
When?
Probably from November, December. When you look at the
is it the same info
we're going to talk about.
Is it the same info that Arnold got? Because Arnold got some info. He doesn't want to.
No, I'm saying if you just look at the trajectory of the official exchange rate, you have an intraday of 1,700 in November. Now your intraday high is like 15 or something like that. So there's certainly been a move down, and it's heavily FPI linked. So I'm saying that
this is an interesting angle, though. So we shouldn't be worried at all about interest rate. Is that what you're saying? Let's not be worried at all.
No. The only link I would see again for someone who has a portfolio here is the Eurobond universe. So the US 10-year Treasury has not moved in the direction we thought it would move, right? US when the Fed started cutting in September, it was 3.8, it's now like 4.5. That has an impact on your capital appreciation of your Nigeria Eurobonds. So that's the link, right? So you would have thought that by now US Treasury will be about 3.5. If you're at 3.5, all those Eurobonds will be at significant premiums to where they are today. So that's the only link. But in terms of day-to-day here, I don't see the connection.
But even the CPI conversations with the US, a lot of it isn't. This is me following a lot of propaganda videos in the US. I've been feeding on a lot of it. So forgive me. All those videos that tell you, there's this conspiracy. Yeah. So a lot of it, I think, is tied to the anticipation of, or was tied to anticipation of tariffs. So, for instance, egg prices in the US almost tripled. Or
they're rationing eggs now in the US.
No, it's not even. It's not the
flu. Someone's talk of eggs.
Yeah.
It's not the flu. It's just the fact that the supply of eggs. Yes, America does produce a lot, but some still comes from outside. So a lot of those. A lot of the fear.
Guys are hoarding. Is that what it is?
It's not really hoarding. So what happened in the last two months or about 6 weeks or so is that a lot of the border countries around the US kind of felt the fear of tariffs coming and then slowed down supply or at least exports into the US. And that has affected a lot of, prices in the US. So things like eggs, even, little things like labor, all the other things that, you feed into your supermarket also comes from neighboring countries, Mexico, Canada. Because one of the things I saw in one of those videos was prices of eggs in Mexico, side-by-side prices of eggs in the US. It was about 4 times the price in the US. And these are like border towns, Mexico, the US. So it's like, this price here, it's like 4 times the price in the US. And it's just really the fact that the eggs from here have just not crossed over to this place.
Yeah.
Do you get? Okay. So I do think that, yes, CPI has increased slightly, but I don't generally believe it's going to remain that way long term, because at least a large portion of what we are seeing that is pushing the inflation is around this conversation of tariffs. And now that the tariffs conversation has cooled a bit, I think we could see in the next 2-3 months, CPI starts to cool.
But inflation isn't forward looking. Right.
No, but I know. So before you get there, he's suggesting. Immediate. So if you're suggesting it's a tariff conversation, so it means that you're disagreeing with Trump, because Trump feels like it's a Biden issue. Biden is the reason why inflation is still
nah.
Yeah, because I think that when the Fed started cutting last year, they had it wrong and the timing was wrong and it started too early.
Really?
That's what I think. Yeah. So I think US inflation stays sticky. January is normally seasonal, so normally January inflation in the US comes out stronger anyway. comes out strong anyway. But this was so everyone was expecting an uplift in inflation, but this came out stronger than expected, and it still goes back to my theory of, and it's obvious that the Fed had it wrong in this cuts, in the cuts that they did, and they went too aggressive.
But you do know the market expected them to cut,
So-
right? So the market was trying to push the Fed to cut.
So I mean,
strongly
last year we had a 2025. We had 4 cuts expected in 2025.
Yeah.
It's went out to 2 when everyone started to realize that they went too early.
Exactly.
And now everyone's looking at 1, right? That
But was
Fed
this
might
this
cut
wasn't the
all at once.
conversation in December. The conversation
November
in December
was 2 cuts. So November was maybe 4 cuts, expecting in 2025. End of
Exactly.
December was like 2 cuts.
2 cuts. Yeah.
Now after
and the
this,
2
everyone
cuts,
realizing.
if you remember the reaction to the market that the reaction the market had to 2 cuts was like, whoa, we expected them to make more cuts. Why are they just doing 2 at the time? And now we're thinking, oh, we should just do 1.
Yeah,
So sometimes maybe we should not listen to market people.
I always thought that the Fed went in too early. But I've got a question though for Egie, because you mentioned the disconnect, and I saw the disconnect last week. I saw Eurobonds. I was ready to try and figure out how to short treasuries even more, like US treasuries, just take a short position. Because for me, the 2025 trade, when you look at the US markets, is long gold, sell treasuries. And when you look at it, you see global central banks doing these trades, right? China had, if you look at the charts or the amount of treasuries that the Chinese central bank held, during the good times in 2010, 2014, it was super high, right? They had a lot of treasury bills, so yields were low, right? Because China held a lot, India, whatever it is. And all of a sudden, in 2024, it's the lowest it's been in a very long time.
Yeah.
And then you can hear a lot of central banks saying gold, gold, gold. But so in my mind, it's okay, no one likes treasuries anymore. Well, most people don't like treasuries anymore, so short treasuries. I expected this huge nosedive last week in any Eurobond, emerging market dollar denominated bond, US treasuries, and obviously a spike in gold, because that's the trade.
Nosedive in what, the yield or the
Nosedive in
price?
the price. So
Yeah.
yields go up. But then it's like, hold on a minute. Gold did the rally. Gold went from 2,800 to 2,900 and it's sitting comfortably in 2,930, whatever it is. So I'm like, yeah, this part of the trade is right. But then the short treasury trade isn't working. And that's the disconnect you're talking about, because then Eurobonds held well. When Egypt held well, Egypt's Eurobonds can be very volatile, right? They held, relatively okay than what I expected. That disconnect, what do you think is causing that disconnect?
Well, again, some of those things in the US market, you might have to get down to mechanical activity in terms of the issuance cycle. There's a lot of maturities, how those things are being bought up. But I think the big thing is that if you check what started to happen from the first Fed cut in September, at that time, what were the polls in terms of who was going to win the election? Because the trajectory change is coming from somebody else being in power, who people think the tax cuts will lead to bigger deficits, which mean bigger borrowing. Now, if in reality, the borrowing is not going to be as big as the market expected, then that might explain. So all this, in theory, cuts that they're starting to talk about, if you can get to the target 1 trillion, then the issuance calendar looks very different going forward. So the supply, the market might be seeing the amount of supply of new bonds coming down the line to be less than they thought it was going to be of recent past.
But then do you think, sorry, I know it's just US is going to be 2 US, but the US is going into stagflation, right? Or do you think? I mean, what stagflation is? Low growth, high inflation, low employment rates.
Yeah.
I mean, jobless numbers came out yesterday better than expected. But should I ask you?
Is the US anywhere close to stagflation?
Do you think US is going to a 70s type stagflation?
No.
Okay.
I mean, that fear was early last year.
Oh,
I
yeah?
don't think that's
No.
Okay, let's see. So you're not worried about employment rates?
Last question.
You're not worried about inflation? You're not worried about low growth coming from the US and how that
there's-
affects?
Well, in my opinion, I mean, it's pretty clear that the oil price is going to have to come down. That's a big variable in inflation in the US.
Okay.
You knock $20 off that price and it makes a huge difference.
Who determines if the prices of oil comes down?
Exactly.
Though? Because US is trying to ramp up production right now, and OPEC is still a significant block in this oil production conversation. And I mean, from the conversations, you still hear that some OPEC countries, I don't know about all, some OPEC countries can, go as low as $10 per barrel. The US, of course, can't do that. I think they need to keep it at least $40 or higher. So who determines if the oil prices go remain high because US is saying ramp up the production.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, for the US, that's a big component in their and everybody's cost, not just the government. I mean, it's probably the number one thing people remember. And there are many ways to get that price down. One is just reducing the tension in the Russia-Ukraine war alone, get some output onto the market.
Yeah.
There's stuff you can do with Venezuela next to the US. That's the biggest reserves in the world. So there are many things they can do to ramp up production and bring the price down. And I wouldn't be betting that the price would be any higher in a year or two from now than it is today.
Yeah.
So,
I think
Egie,
so,
Trump
too.
wants interest rates now, and that's one of his growls with Donald Trump. Now that with the Fed chair Paul. So now that you've seen inflation rate go up, he's also railing against it, upset that inflation is not blaming Biden. Do you think that could perhaps force Powell to maybe fast track rate cuts? I mean, a lot of people the projection now is that rate cuts probably happen in October, but do you think it could probably happen sooner?
I think the bond market has taken that decision out of the hand of the Fed. So if they like, they can cut the rates to zero. It makes no difference. What matters is the bond market yields, and those yields don't listen to anybody, be the president or the Federal Reserve Chair.
And the yields continue to remain strong.
I mean, listen, I'm sticking to my guns, man. I think that bonds come off even more. I don't know whether US yields go back to the highs of October 2023, but I think the bonds come off even more. And I think, and for me, and I go back to my worry of that carry, that I love to talk about the carry, right?
The carry trade.
We talked about good times when the Chinese held a lot of treasury bills. US bonds were yields are super low, and everyone loved emerging markets. My thing is EM is still shaky because nobody likes you. I don't want to say nobody, but a lot of people are going out of bonds, and these yields are going to be rising. And my worry is what happens to EM.
But I don't know. You guys are sounding a little bit funny here to me. Like, are you guys suggesting that with interest rates going down or likely to go down, or probably has gone down, as you just alluded to?
Whose interest rates?
US interest rate. Emerging markets are not safer, or emerging markets don't benefit from this? It's not net positive for us.
No, I think what I'm saying is that the Fed funds rate is not the number you care
yes,
about.
I get what you're
The
saying.
number we care about is the US Treasury, particularly 10-year Treasury, and that is divorced itself from the Fed funds rate. When they've had a couple of rate cuts, from the first rate cut to now, the 10-year Treasury is up maybe 80 basis points. So it's not really the Fed funds rates. You can do that
Exactly. So at the same time, but okay, so even at that, doesn't it still mean that it's net positive for emerging markets?
So
it should, but I think
from the capital flows
I
point
think the
of
question
view.
Arnold is asking is about what spread should there be between the 10-year Treasury and bonds over
And
here.
EM, exactly.
And
EM
historically,
dollar
that spread is about 6-7%, and it's compressing. And the question is, can it compress further? So if the US 10-year Treasury is rising, why are the yields here falling?
Why is here falling? It's a
spread is-
disconnect. So that
spread
spread,
is narrowing,
because if you look at it normally, I mean, okay, he said it.
So
he said it.
Okay, so you guys answer it then. So why?
No. So I think it depends on the country. Because if you look at the Africa universe, I mean, Ethiopia has defaulted, Zambia has defaulted, Ghana has defaulted.
Yeah. Senegal's dodgy, sitting on
Yes,
might
with
default
what's happening
now.
with Senegal,
Yeah.
Gabon, I mean, they got to like 12-13% yield. Started to look funny. So you have to separate the countries. Nigeria is in a kind of a very different boat. I mean, look at like those Senegal numbers of deficit and debt to GDP. They're totally outrageous.
Yeah.
Nigeria is nothing like that. And so there might be a flight to quality even within that universe.
Yeah,
So we shouldn't
and
be worried then.
even in the US, I don't think the Fed itself is that keen on cutting, despite what Donald Trump says. Despite
can't.
what Donald Trump said. Donald Trump has an idea that rates should come down, but I don't think the Fed totally.
So
agrees.
basically,
so
you
Donald
guys
Trump sees
y'all
it
are
from
saying that Fed cuts don't longer matter. Is that what you guys are saying?
No. That's not what we're saying. We're saying right now, some things have overtaken events. Some other issues have overtaken events. There are too many factors in play. So when you're looking at any investment or any decision conversation, there are so many factors to look at. So right now, there's the CPI conversation. There's jobs at least for the Fed to talk about cutting rates. So they are looking at job numbers. It's not really scary. They are looking at CPI numbers. It's not really scary. You can detach a lot of things from CPI and say it can kind of make sense. Growth is still relatively okay. So by the time you look at it, what's the real incentive to cut.
Yeah, but
Cut
what happens
drastically.
when
But you
Trump
want to
tariffs
cut
come in?
because
Right?
that affects mortgages.
Then let it come in first. You don't want to preempt the. You don't want to preempt
but
the
perhaps bond
conversation
markets are
because
preempting
note
inflation.
this: when he was coming in, nobody thought we were going to have this 90-day break with Mexico and Canada, right? Because we all thought he was going to come in and slam everybody with tariffs. And then those tariffs were going to feed in, and those people were going to continue selling to the US despite the tariffs. So the tariffs were going to make a lot of money, blah, 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 blah. It was going to increase inflation. Now we've seen that he's now talked about the tariffs. Canada is feeling hurt. Mexico is feeling pained. China is, is feeling
Ready to
some hurt.
retaliate.
Do you get? So there's the conversation, the reality of those tariffs aren't really what we all expected. So even if it does come in, it doesn't generally just translate into that. So if you cut while you are expecting that, okay, this is going to turn to this, and it doesn't turn to that, you've now cut and you now have excess on your hands. What do you now do with that excess liquidity?
All right, guys, we gotta move on. Straight up, during the week as well, Donald Trump again fired another shot at
This show is becoming the Donald Trump show.
He fired another shot at the EU and surprised them with the decision to pull away from, supporting Ukraine, essentially
Okay.
Ukraine-Russia war, and suggesting that, look, this war can be won based on what Ukraine wants. Of course, the Europeans were a little shocked. And of course, we're also seeing a lot of moves by Donald Trump within the US as well, shutting down Department of Education, giving Elon Musk a lot of powers and all that stuff. So I was reading somewhere and they were asking, are we now in a new world of imperialism where you have strongman leaders? You have Putin, you have
Tinubu's. Tinubu is a strong man. He's a strong man politician.
Yes.
We are in a strong man politician era.
I agree entirely with
We
that.
are. No,
I
we
agree
are.
entirely
We
with
are.
that.
I'm not sure that's your question, but let me interject. We are in a strong man political
entirely with that.
100%. Yeah.
Anyway, so
Okay, finish your question.
so we've got Z as well in China, and then you now got Donald Trump. So do you think the world faces a risk of imperialist leaders, and what does it mean for global markets? When you have leaders that can just snap their finger and make things happen.
Has it ever been different?
Well, it has been. But again, at the end of the day, in the US, presidential term is 4 years, right?
So you can't last.
There's only so much you can do.
Exactly. It's different from China, but it's 4 years. So you can have things go sideways.
So, but by the time it's 4 years, it's gone, and Islam tariffs everywhere, and it starts a global trade war. Isn't it something that we should be worried about?
Not really, no.
Really?
Again, I still don't think his tariffs conversations are really tariffs for tariffs' sake. I think it's a negotiation tactic. I know that people do not, at least in the comment section, do not agree with me. I strongly believe it's a negotiation tactic, especially with China. And again, forgive me, I do watch a lot of those conspiracy theory videos on YouTube.
but I think when things look different, if for instance you had the US 10-year Treasury above 5%, then you start to have total change of
exactly.
So the market variables that make a government change dramatically. If you see what happened in the UK when you had Liz Truss for 44 days, it was a bond market thing that just put an end to what they were trying to do.
Yeah.
That hasn't happened yet.
That hasn't happened yet.
So the market is still fairly stable. But I think they were a little worried though when the first salvo was put out.
Yes, but I'm saying that if you
tariffs.
look at the 10-year Treasury, how it has behaved, it's actually down from that time. So if you start to see 10-year Treasury above 5%, then you start to see a change of government policy in
The
US.
worries are really in a lot of people's heads, rather than in the reality of what's happening.
Yeah.
So you look at, so for instance, I like one of those videos I was watching, it was showing economic activity in Guangzhou in China, and it was talking about the fact that certain malls are now getting empty. Economic activity is not happening as it used to, because a lot of those malls were businesses that were operating out of those malls. But basically, yes, they were in the malls, but they were not really operating because of their presence in the mall. It was because of their export to the US, and US was one of their biggest. The way it is now, Alibaba and all of those things. Now, because there's a bit of tension in between, a lot of those businesses have been forced to close down. Some of them have not been able to pay salaries. A lot of that is happening in Guangzhou. So there is this squeeze of small businesses in the Chinese region where the government is saying we're going in this direction, but the small businesses that have been thriving for decades, all off the back of the difference between the yuan and the US dollar, and being able to sell largely to the US market, basically because their products are very cheap and they can easily get it to the US, now are feeling the squeeze of this tension. Right? It might not change. It might not change the government's narrative, but it starts to paint a picture that Trump might not be as crazy as we think he is.
But I want to throw some span in the works. So I think the market is reacting. I think the market is reacting. I think I'm taking the other side of this one. And I'll tell you what asset class is showing it. Gold. Gold has done $300, $400 in 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 7 weeks, and we all see gold as a safe haven investment. Mm-hmm. And I think that's showing that people are actually worried about what's going on. Worried. And over the past few weeks, where you've had Trump being very vocal, gold has done pretty much a straight line.
So why is US Treasury?
And this is what I'm trying to figure out, and this is why I guess maybe this is why we came. This is why we're trying to understand. Because you look at Treasury, you're like, okay, hold on a minute, it's not working. But then you look at gold and you're saying, hold on a minute, something's going on here, and quietly. And gold being a safe haven, I think we need to pay attention to that. I think
also gold is really speaking to
gold is almost at $3,000.
No. Gold is speaking to a lot of analysts like Arnold, who have held a very strong position and now worried that they don't know what the next curve is.
No, but I don't.
I'm trying to just
which is uncertainty.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I think, but you had mentioned it before, central bank action. I mean, obviously, if you're a central bank now, you're not overloading on US Treasuries, right?
Yeah.
So you're trying to diversify. Mm-hmm. You're doing gold. You're going back to gold.
Yes.
And many people had sold down their gold positions. I mean, they're building up their gold reserves, and so that's causing the price to go up, right?
And it's only.
So you think it's more central? I guess it's hard to say what's in the price, but you're saying you think the price is more central bank action than uncertainty.
I think so. I mean, if you look at, I think Canada sold all their gold reserves. I mean, I think the Bank of England sold down. I mean, so people are just realizing that the US dollar might not be, or US treasuries might not be you don't want to go 100% to
exactly,
US. So if you want to diversify,
you want to hold gold. Yeah.
I mean, some people want to do Bitcoin. I'm not sure any.
Yes. So a lot of people. So the conventional. Sorry, I think the Gen Z thing to do would have been to just go into crypto and hold a lot of Bitcoin.
Central bank, you can't.
But when you're a central bank, exactly, you can't do that, right? You can't go that crazy.
You buy gold.
but there are conversations, right? There are conversations. At least a lot of the people within the crypto world in the US are beginning to believe, especially with some of Donald Trump's statements, that people might look more to crypto as a reserve. But it's just too out there for now for a central bank to think of. Yes, some individuals might do it, but it's still very, very. It's still very, as in you can imagine a whole central bank as it's sitting down saying, let's put our reserves in crypto.
There's conversation around that though, and I think it's probably something Trump is flirting with.
Yes, he is. Yeah.
But we've got to move on. So
just one question: how much gold reserves does Central Bank of Nigeria have?
I don't know.
I'm just asking.
Let's not.
Wow.
Mic check.
I was looking at.
I do know how much you have.
It'll be good to know, though. It'll be good to know because we want a transparent central bank. Yeah. We want to know that our people know what's going on. So we would like to know how much gold reserves do you have?
Who are you asking? Let's be clear. Let's be clear.
Watch them start buying at the top $2,500. Hey, we need to get old gold.
Hey guys, let's move on. So finally from global stuff. Another thing that happened last week was the Super Bowl. We saw the Super Bowl happen last week.
Yes.
I don't know what your take is. But before you give me your take.
I missed that one. I miss these things.
Yeah, I know you miss it.
I miss these things. But I don't have time.
Tunji, just curious, what would you say is the closest to Super Bowl in Nigeria? Closest event.
In Nigeria?
Yeah.
In Nigeria.
I thought you were going to ask the debate, which is more popular, the Super Bowl.
So Super Bowl.
No, I was going to come
compared
to
the Super Bowl in Nigeria, it is still, and I'm going to get pelters for this, it is probably the experience.
The experience. What's the experience?
You don't go to church. You're not religious.
So,
That's
so
another
the reason
podcast.
why, so let's
That's another show.
Let's understand.
That is another show.
Let's
Okay,
understand-
please. There are
Let's
some
understand what I'm saying.
uninitiated.
Let's understand
Can you
what I'm
explain
saying.
what the
Let's
experience
understand
is?
what I'm
For the
saying.
I don't know what the experience is.
So the experience is
Yes, please.
a yearly end of the year concert.
Okay.
Is how Tunji is equating.
I'm
So
just-
you mean
I'm a bit
the
lost.
experience is
so that is
the closest to
I'm telling
Super Bowl
you- I'm telling
religion
you
in
how
Nigeria.
terrible-
Wow.
I'm telling you how
Bro.
terrible.
I don't
I'm
see
telling
the
you how
comparison.
terrible the entertainment scene is in Nigeria. So
Or the sports scene, I guess.
Sports scene.
No.
So
sports-
religion is a sport.
Sports and
versus-
entertainment, anyway.
I guess
No.
it can
So
be.
for me, it's really entertainment on both sides.
Okay, can we just leave church out of this? So
think
okay,
about
outside
it.
of church
I'm thinking
events.
about it in what in Nigeria gets eyeballs like the Super Bowl, gets people streaming a live event
presidential
like the
media
Super Bowl.
chat.
No, how many people watch it? Let's comments, please come through. How many people watch this presidential presidential chat?
media chat.
Vis-a-vis the experience. How many people physically go to the experience vis-a-vis any other concert? I'm talking about, put it side by side, a A-lister entertainment artist. We know even the Super Eagles do not gather the kind of
Egie, what do you think? What comes close?
What's the kind of population what's the population for the experience? I'm just curious.
So
fill up
first
the
of all,
entire
it's in TBS, Tafawa Balewa Square, and
Okay.
it is filled up and it has an overflow.
What's the capacity? Do you know?
I
It'd just be good to do like a.
So I think, I think in terms of the Super Bowl, the numbers you hear about in the US are not about how many people are in the stadium. I mean,
Yes,
those are
people
always-
streaming. So that's
those are
why
always very
I
big stadiums.
compared it with
So in the
experience.
case of the experience, it will be, yes, physical attendance is probably,
Good.
you might say it's the largest physical attendance
Yeah.
event in Nigeria, probably
Yeah.
100,000
Yeah.
plus live, right?
Yeah.
But in terms of watching audience, given the time of day,
Yeah.
which is overnight, you're not going to get those big numbers, which is probably why you didn't watch Super Bowls, middle of nights, right?
Yeah, exactly.
At night
But are
to
you
watch-
talking about the viewership
So
in
I'm not-
America
I'm not sure
and the
that it-
viewership in Nigeria? Is that what you're talking about?
I
Or the
think it's
Nigerian
talking about,
viewership
it's
of
talking
the
about
Super Bowl?
entirely US. So what it means to the US, right?
So
what
viewers-
the Super Bowl means to the US. Is there anything
I don't think there's
So
like
like
that.
that?
103
okay, I
million
understand.
people
Watched.
watched the Super Bowl.
In America?
In America.
100 and what million?
103 million.
103 million.
So
Okay,
you have
that's
100
that's a
and
third of the
how many
population.
eyeballs?
So what is close to that in Nigeria in terms of eyeballs? Like, what do we all?
Well-
What can you certainly say? Look,
Comment section,
Nigerians
please
are
come
all
through.
watching.
Okay, well,
So do you say a
at
third of the
same time.
Nigerian
Well,
population watch the
yeah, so-
experience?
No.
Because that's
No.
that's how you
No,
do it.
no, no,
You say
I think I
viewership
have an answer.
to population.
Okay, wait, let's hear his answer.
I think I remember NTA News at 9 used to claim they had 30 million viewers, right?
Used to claim.
Back then.
Used to
So that was the
claim.
closest.
And that was back
30
then.
million. That's
But it was because that was the only thing. That was the only thing we were watching.
it's 30 million viewers.
So there's
That's
really
it.
nothing. So there's nothing in Nigeria that you can claim 5 million people tune in and we're watching.
Drinks and mics.
Very soon. But honestly, I do
Damn.
not think there's
Drinks and mics.
anything in Nigeria that can compare to what the Super. And again, understand what understand what Ugodre is talking about
Yeah, exactly.
in terms of the viewership. The viewership is eyeballs. One, the viewership is also revenue. In terms of the fact that
you're not gonna match that, yeah.
anybody that is advertising,
Not even that, Tunji. So what I'm talking about essentially is, in context, is there any event that happens in Nigeria today that everyone keys into at the same time?
None.
Not anymore.
There is none.
Not anymore.
Which speaks to the point that we're making the last Drinks and Mics we had, or the two shows before that.
Okay.
When we're talking about, entertainment,
Yeah,
and how
yeah.
what
People
people
don't- people
can
don't-
play,
None.
Yeah.
and the kind of gap that we have here. So there's actually no. That's why I said presidential media chat.
Yeah.
The experience is free.
Ah,
Are you?
okay.
No, I need to
started
put that
drinking.
in.
He has
I need to
started
put that
actually.
in.
I'm
Think
talking
it's at the
about
second
eyeballs
class.
here.
Yeah.
So I think,
Eyeballs.
again, I
There's
don't know-
nothing.
I don't know, again. if
Though
it's
I hear there's one other church whatever like that. I heard there's one YouTube, like some guy on YouTube.
Oh, yes. In
Yeah,
the
actually,
morning,
Yes,
like
one
morning prayer.
NSPP,
Is it-
whatever.
is-
I
is
think.
it
Yeah,
speaking,
early morning prayer
I heard the
thing.
guy gets a lot of like,
But
Yeah.
I think
and
in
he
terms of-
filled TBS as well.
Oh, did he?
in terms
Yeah.
of understanding how basic, yeah. But in terms, again, if you're using sports as the analogy, in the past when Nigeria was much better in sports. So if you had a Olympic gold medal game or African Nations Cup finals, I don't know what the viewership.
That's probably what everybody's watching.
I
that'll be the nearest- that'll be nearest to that.
I don't think we still do very close. I think a general problem is a strong sense of apathy so the Super Bowl does a lot in terms of build up to the event.
I think the answer is whenever Arsenal is whooping Man U or something, like when does it
Wow.
Wow. When does
It's
like,
I'm a Manchester
because,
United
I mean, there are
fan,
more
by the
Arsenal
way.
fans in Nigeria, obviously.
I think there are more Chelsea
There are
fans in
more fans.
Nigeria.
No. Just fans are, come on. Anyway, guys, we move on to Nigeria. So, MPC next week, Egie. They're going to have it. They moved it by a day or so, I think. You want to say something, Tunji? Okay.
No.
Okay,
Can
so
I-
they moved it by... Is it another church thing?
Go,
They
go,
moved it
go,
by
go.
a day or two, and we expect them to meet right after inflation numbers probably come out. I think one of the reasons why they said they were in meeting was because they were planning to rebase. And so because they wanted to rebase, or the rebasing data was coming out late or later than expected, and that's why they had to move MPR or MPC meeting by, I think, 1 day. So what are your expectations? You expect CBN to continue with their, stable rates or go hawkish? Or
Well,
dovish?
I think, they've increased rates in every single meeting under this new CBN government. I believe 5 straight meetings with increases.
I thought they held it in
I
December.
think it
Was
was
it just
0.25 in November.
Yeah, it was 0.25.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so-
it was
so-
okay? There was
slight.
none in December.
Yes,
There was none in December. Yeah, there was 0.25.
So I'll expect that probably a hold, which will be a change in direction from increasing every meeting.
Yeah.
But I think they're probably going to play around with some of those other variables, the asymmetric corridor.
What do you think? More liquidity or less liquidity?
Well, because
If
the
inflation
asymmetric-
comes out lower, which everyone's expecting, do you think how would they play with it? What would
Well,
they do with it?
again, they probably don't want to cut prematurely, but again, the markets have already made the move for them. So you have a situation right now where the asymmetric corridor, I think, is +5 -1, and so banks can place money in CBN at 26.5, and the 1 year OMO and 1 year T-bill are below that. So if you're a bank, what do you do? Take all your money and dump it in the CBN, right? So they're going to have to play with that to discourage that kind of activity. So they might leave the MPR at 27.5, move those corridors around. Not sure they'll touch CRR for now. It's already ridiculous at 50%. But they'll probably not do a cut. I think it's a bit early for that because
So you expect a freeze?
a hold in rates, but they might play around with the asymmetric corridor.
So that's much better. Do you think they're gonna? So what do you think they're gonna do with the window?
Reduce the rate at which banks borrow from CBN's MPR +5, bring
Yeah.
that down, and then
Okay.
reduce the rate at which you can deposit in CBN because that's MPR -1. Make it -5 or something.
But okay, there's a lot of pressure on the central bank to try and reduce rates as well. I mean, they've been hawkish the whole of last year. And you're seeing pressure from Manufacturing Association of Nigeria, Nigerian Employment Consultation Forum or whatever. You've seen them piling pressure. Don't you think Cardoso is under some kind of pressure as well to try and fast track rate cuts?
But again, going from increasing to flat is one move.
It's a big
So
move.
it's a positive move in the right direction. Reducing the rate at which banks borrow from CBN, which effectively put a floor on your lending rates, also helps, right? And as I said, the market has already solved the problem. For those companies that can access markets directly, they're issuers of commercial paper and bonds, then they can probably borrow cheaper in that market. So, and then the biggest source of borrowing for the federal government is the market, right? So you've cut federal government borrowing costs without even moving MPR. So the market solution is already going ahead
So,
of the...
so that pressure to reduce
but
MPR
lending rates are
has
still very
reduced.
high. Have you tried to get a
no,
loan?
no,
No,
So
but what
that-
he's saying
that-
is that there is a mechanism for you to borrow outside of that traditional lending rate.
No, even for
Yeah.
the lending rates. So right now, technically, if MPR is 27.5 and banks borrow from CBN at MPR +5, which is 32.5, no bank should really lend you money below 32.5. Now, if CBN moves that down from MPR +5 to MPR +1, and banks can borrow from CBN at 28.5, then all of a sudden they can drop your
To 30
your
maybe.
loan down,
Yeah.
right? So, and you don't want to do things in a big crash. I mean,
No.
the
Yes, you
CBN
wanna
yield
go-
has already dropped
yeah.
about 6% this year. You don't want to do that
Which
on the MPR side.
we really need to understand why.
Why what?
Why it's dropped.
But it's,
by
there's a lot of it
such.
is liquidity as well. There's a lot.
Where is the liquidity? So we're having this conversation before, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, on the group chat we had this conversation about the OMO subscription,
Yeah.
and we had two OMO put out. Was it this week? And then I think it was 300 or
So one this week, yeah, it was supposed to be 300. The ask or the bid was like 1.5 trillion.
exactly. So,
And then they took about 900 or so.
pretty
which
much
is about a
oversubscribed by
trillion.
like 3 times. And then we were talking about the fact that, man, this is mad liquidity.
Yeah.
As in, this is too much
Just to
liquidity.
put it into context,
For this-
there was
355,
amount offered 300
365.
billion, and this for the 362-day
Yeah.
OMO bill. Subscription was 1.5.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
trillion.
So we were like,
499.
the first impression was, this is too much liquidity in the market. We need to do something about it. But then Egie has a different perspective about it.
I think some of these things, again, you have to go into the mechanical weeds of how some of these auctions work. Right? If not, if you're just going at a high level, it doesn't explain it properly to you. So take, for instance, there's a T-bill auction calendar for Q1
Yes.
that came out at the beginning of the year. For the first time in years, it says from February, they're going to start returning money to people. So normally in a T-bill auction, you normally just roll over. So
Yeah,
what you sell is what's
yeah.
maturing. But last year, they were selling far more than what was maturing. They were borrowing from that market.
Yes,
They borrowed
yes.
almost 6 trillion from that market last year.
So basically mopping
Now
up
they're-
a lot more
They're unwinding it. They're saying we'll start returning money to
money.
you. Now, the last time anything close to that happened, I mean, it's never really happened, was in 2020 when OMO bills will mature. They'll give you the money and they won't issue OMO bills again.
Yeah.
And you have to go dump it somewhere.
Somewhere.
So that mechanics of an auction has kicked in from the last T-bill auction on February 5th. And as long as they're returning money at each auction, they're going to just have that rate. That rate will just literally collapse.
Why do you think they're doing that though?
Because again, you have to go back in history a bit. The treasury bill is not really a source of DMO strategy. Does not include borrowing from the treasury bill market.
Yeah.
It's bonds,
Yeah.
it's medium and long term borrowing. So
Yeah.
that T-bill market was flat. I remember there was a time they borrowed $3 billion to pay off 1 trillion T-bills. That's the
Yeah.
worst trillion. They're not only 3 billion or 1 trillion.
and
Only
exactly.
5 trillion or so. but they kept it down about 3-point-something trillion for many years and started to creep up. But last year it just ballooned
yeah.
because they didn't want to go lock in long-term rates. You want to lock in 22% for 30 years and things like that.
Yeah.
So they said, let's go short and
Yeah.
then we'll refi next year.
Refi.
We're now in next year. So what do you do now?
Yeah.
Because they want to roll over at those kind of rates. So
Yeah.
that mechanics of the regular T-bill auction will collapse the rates. The rates will be
So you
way-
feel there's a disconnect somewhere now
Yes.
between T-bills and OMO bills?
OMO is not borrowing. It's central bank action. It's not federal government liability. It should be for mopping up liquidity, but it has now become an FPI tool. And for a reason, because when the central bank gives you this piece of paper, OMO, you bring actual dollars in. If they find their way into reserves, which they could if the CBN goes into the foreign exchange market, there's no offsetting liability. It's not like a swap. You don't owe you any dollars.
Which of course needs to
Which is
start
fantastic.
speaking to the fact that we've seen the Naira strengthen,
Yeah.
significantly.
I mean, we
for
spoke
the
about
past-
this on the first
Yes.
episode of
So-
But
Drinks
that
and
has
Mics,
started to
right?
reverse. So again, and I think
No. Before we get to the reverse,
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
let's end this because
Yeah,
the
because-
reverse actually is painful. But
so
let's talk about the inflow that came in.
The calendar for the regular T-bill auction, they're paying back money. They're going to pay 679 billion next week. They paid 286 last time. The rates are just going to collapse because
When you say rate, T-bill rates
T-bill
are
rates.
going to collapse.
Yes. Now there's a link between T-bill rates and OMO rates. It's normally about
Yeah.
Exactly.
maximum 2% differential.
Yeah.
So which is why the OMO rate keeps dropping. You can't have this huge
Yeah.
gap between T-bill
Yeah.
and OMO.
And
I think
OMO
now
rates.
in the secondary market, OMO on the discount basis maybe 20.25 on 1 year. T-bill 18.9. Right. So there's some correlation between the two. They are less than 2% apart. And if the T-bill just keeps dropping, the
OMO has to keep
follow down.
dropping.
Yes.
If not, it creates
So what does that do
massive
to
arbitrage.
capital flows then?
Eventually, the capital flows will dry up, and I assume they've already decided to reverse.
So
Anything we're saying
you're
is
still going
behind
to
the
you're still
curve.
going straight to that point. But
I'm
I
just
want us to
listening.
talk about the inflow first.
Because I know it's about to land.
It's about to go down. but we have attracted quite a significant amount of FPI in the last maybe couple of months.
Yes.
And that has been very, very good for us. So we had a conversation last week and we talked about the trajectory of the Naira, how it is. It doesn't really make a lot of sense for you to go short on the Naira, even short term. There was talks about going long on the
I
Naira.
listened to that, but the analysis was not complete.
Aha.
Yeah.
It wasn't complete.
Yeah.
Completed then.
Okay, because
I feel like I was trying to complete it, but
Yeah,
I
you
drank too much whiskey. So I failed to articulate it properly. but going back to OMO real quick, we spoke about this.
So in terms of that completion,
Yeah.
right, because they talked about, okay, if you have Naira, you buy T-bills, okay, today maybe you'll get 23.
Yeah.
Naira leg, right? Your dollar leg is not sitting in the bank earning zero. Right? So what do you do with your dollar leg?
Yeah.
Right? Now, if you're a large investor, you're not just going to put your money in a mutual fund earning 6-7%.
Yeah.
You're going to go into the Eurobond market and
Yeah.
you're going to actually buy Eurobonds. And if you had done that trade, even today, I mean, literally you could get 2051 under 83, your cash return is 10%. That paper can easily move from 82.5 to 90.
Yeah. And it
That's
will
the-
move. And it
Your
will
total
move.
The
return is
Eurobond
now-
price, you mean?
Yes.
Eurobond
So
price,
all of a
yeah,
sudden, your cash
2051 Eurobond.
10%, you get an appreciation 5 to 10%. Your total return
Yeah.
on the dollar leg is almost 20%.
Yes.
Even if it's 15, if you have $15, 23 Naira, where do you go? So that's the full picture. It's not
Yeah.
so many times people are
Yeah.
talking about
The
Naira
options
is
aren't really that much, right?
No. So I'm saying that you have to look at your total return on the dollar. Where is
Yeah.
Yeah. So your
dollar
coupon and
cash.
price
So
appreciation.
when you
Yeah.
look at the differential between the two, that differential is narrowing. Before the event we had at the end of December, I said 1 year T-bill, 29 point something, best trade.
Yeah.
Right now, all of a
Yeah.
sudden, that thing is giving you
It's
23.
gone. Yeah, it's gone.
Yeah, it's gone.
And then
It's
so
gone.
if you start to look at it, if you look at the Eurobond,
You start looking at
Nigeria
opportunity
issue, it's
costs.
similar.
At
The
9 point something percent.
the 2034, I think it's trading at almost 104 now.
Yeah. The one they issued. Yeah.
Wow.
So 103.75. Yeah.
10.375. You've already got
You're getting-
4%. Your total return 12 months is about 15%. As of today, not even going
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah.
So when you look at that differential, as it collapses, all of a sudden the
So
dollar
so
side
so
becomes
now
interesting.
now the question is, as this trend starts to reverse, what happens to the carry trade? What happens to the carry trade? So I have brought my money in from wherever, right?
It becomes less attractive.
Yeah.
right?
What happens
do I
to?
need to say?
So don't look at me as a Nigerian. I've brought my FPI in.
And you're looking at it from an OMO perspective, right? So
And we're
the carry
hearing all
trade-
sorts of conversations around more FPI coming into Nigeria. You know, there's people, committing to bringing FPI into the country,
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, every trade, has the early movers who make the real
The
returns.
real
Right?
returns,
People who came in
yeah.
at 1670 plus, they've made over 10% on currency. They came in at 32% OMO, they can flip out of that paper at 22. I mean, so
Yeah.
their return is totally different. Somebody coming in today at 1500
Yeah.
and they're giving you about sub 25% on the OMO. I'm not really sure how much they're going to make. They'll make something, but it's not the kind
But
of
it's not
crazy
what
return.
I mean, that came in December will be making.
Those returns are gone anyway.
Yeah.
They're gone. So
Yeah, they're
they'll
gone.
make
They're gone.
something, but again, the currency thing, again, that's a whole different story. I mean,
So if I come in now, that means that I have to. I'm willing to stay.
So I mean, if you come in now, then it's hard, right? But
I've
the
decided to
equity
stay.
market is probably the new wave, the next wave,
Yeah.
right? If you think stocks are cheap,
but it's a different set of investors.
it's a different set
Yeah.
of investors.
And those ones
It's a
haven't
different set of
shown up.
investors.
That's
No,
what's
they haven't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
they haven't
the
shown
thing.
yet.
And it's not strange because they're looking at how cheap is the stock versus the currency, right?
So Egie, I mean, putting all this together now, and of course, where I'm always going to go to FX play. With everything that's going on, I mean, the world, Trump, US rates, US interest rates, US 10-year treasuries, Nigeria, OMO bills. Where does this leave the FX situation in Nigeria? Are you bullish, or you think that we're just in a honeymoon period?
His face
I mean,
doesn't look bullish.
This is what I call a short squeeze.
Or is this
It's what I call a short squeeze. The shorts are getting
I mean, you
squeezed.
did mention to me once that, I mean,
it comes back.
whenever we have this Chinese holiday, we tend to have stronger naira.
Oh.
Is this still the play?
No, again, I think what happened last year is obviously not something that you expect to happen on a regular basis. But just given the inflation and interest rate differentials between Nigeria and the US and very, very large federal government deficit, which is a whole different discussion, right? The currency over time will weaken. The question is by how much? Right?
Wait, let's try and explain that.
Yeah.
He's
No, let's
saying
not
that
explain it. Do not
the
explain it.
inflation
smiling.
differential. That is the difference between Nigerian inflation rate
Yeah.
and the US inflation rate.
rate.
That usually impacts exchange rate conversation. And the fact that we are running a 13.3 trillion deficit again this year could mean a weaker exchange rate.
That was
That's
still
what you
borrow
said.
more.
Yeah, but you have to balance it off with the interest rates also. So if your 1 year is 23 here and in the US is 4 point something, right? There's positive real there, negative real there.
Yeah.
So the currency just on a natural basis should be declining. every
Yeah,
year.
naturally.
Yeah.
That's
By
number
how
one
By
rule.
how much? Yeah.
That's the rule.
I mean, it's always been
And
an average
back to the
5%.
conversation
5 to 10.
long.
5 to 10% a year, I don't think.
Which is
anybody
what I
can
said earlier. I told you guys plus or minus 10%. I said that.
Ugodre,
No, he did, and I agreed. And I agreed.
I said that.
He said that. I'll back it. I agree.
Is this what he
Because
said?
Yeah, we
that's
talked
what I
about
said.
it
I
a few
always
shows
do
ago.
numbers.
That and
always do
historically,
numbers.
that's what it is. I always, when I look at a lot of African currencies, especially Nigeria, you put a 10% annual depreciation on your number.
So,
You just do on a
Ege,
stable as a stable currency.
As a stable currency, yeah.
That's what it is. But if you're talking volatility now, is what is hard
Yeah.
to actually
So
say.
I don't see any volatility in our future, but of course that stable decline
Depreciation, yeah.
looks like it's going to be there regardless.
It's an emerging market number one rule.
So Ege, someone asked me a question yesterday and it said, if you were to advise me on what exchange rate I should model this year for my business plan, what should that be?
Do you mean official or?
As in like,
No,
no,
like
no,
it's
no.
trying to plan for the
so
year,
if I want
like,
to plan for the year,
plan is
what
important and what exchange rate
should
should
be
we
my
use?
dollar to naira planning model? So is it 2,000 naira to a dollar? Is it 100
Exactly.
1,100 to the dollar? Is it
Is there
one?
a band?
Is it
No, I don't-
750 to the dollar?
Is it from A or from M? I mean, where are you?
What is it?
Yeah.
No, because there's a difference, right? The differential between those,
Yeah,
the official
yeah, those
and
markets are
parallel
different, yeah.
was very wide.
Let's
It was
assume
like
parallel.
120.
So let's
Parallel.
assume parallel.
If you're saying
That's really the
parallel,
worst case scenario.
I'll be working with 1,700.
1,700, which is what I think. I
That's
think
fair
it's
enough.
fair.
I've
always-
you were
No,
more bearish.
no,
No,
I
we were-
no,
we
no,
were-
no, no, I was
I'll
always
be honest.
bearish.
I'll be honest, and I'll say
See,
we were more
comments,
bearish.
remember,
We were.
I was
And we had
always
reason to
1,700.
be.
I
And
was
we had
always
reason to be.
1,700.
But
And it's
no,
okay
so
it's okay to go back and look at your numbers
No,
again and
no,
say
Arnold said 2,000. I
Let's
was
hear-
always
let's hear
2,250,
Ege.
if
but
I
bear in
remember
mind that,
correctly.
again, going into details, you're at what, 1,570 right now.
Yeah.
Right? So if you have a 1,700 average for the year, it means that at some point you're going to be way above 1,700.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? So
yeah.
that-
you
that's-
might,
Okay,
you might
you're looking at
hit
that. You're looking at the average, not year end.
Yeah.
So
No,
I want to know what's your
but-
year
but-
end. What's your year end?
Oh,
What's your
year
end?
end.
The end of 2025.
I think it's definitely going to be at least 1,800.
Okay.
1,800 year end? Hell no.
Yeah.
Ege, come on.
I
Too
agree.
low or too high?
You can't
I
beat
agree.
it.
I agree.
Why wouldn't you agree?
No. So I agree. There are several factors to it. So a lot of the things that, so especially with the fact that there's so many things that are yet to play out in the real sense of it, and Nigeria is just playing catch up with a lot of these things. So the strengthening we've seen in the naira recently has significantly been an FEI play, right? It's not really a lot of fundamentals from the Nigerian side. It's not like we've increased exports. It's not like we've increased oil production. There's
But
nothing.
we produce our own fuel now.
No.
That
I'm
reduces
saying there's
imports.
nothing fundamental to
I think
the
that's a key
price
thing,
of
just
FX as
So-
of
so-
today.
so-
What's the
for
impact
me-
of the Chinese on all of this? Chinese holiday.
No,
Why is that important?
No, it's a tactical trading issue. Like if you want to buy currency, you're not trying to. You want to buy around that time. Because
Yeah, there's
China
just-
shuts down.
Yeah, there's
biggest,
just
Yeah.
one
biggest
currency
trading
out of the
partner is
play.
China by far, right? And they literally shut that place down for like 2 weeks, and so the demand
just
rather
dies
crashes,
out.
basically.
Yeah,
Every
so
year
it
the same
crashes
pattern.
market.
the Chinese New Year, Chinese National Day, December. I mean, Naira appreciates every year.
So you guys are sounding like we're going to see a bit more volatility this year.
I don't
Perhaps
think- I don't
not as
think
bad
the
as
word
it
is
was.
volatility.
Exactly, it's not
It's
volatility.
a
They're gonna be swinging
weakening.
between
It's just a
1.5
weakening.
No,
It's a
you're
weakening.
gonna be-
It's just a
You're going to be swinging
weakening.
between 1,500 and
It's not volatility. It's a
1,700.
weakening.
I think it's
National
returning
week.
to norm. I think it's returning to norm because what we have
What's
right
norm?
now,
Back to
Ugodre,
mean reversion,
what we
they
have
call
right
it.
now, what we
It's
have
mean
right
reversion.
now feels artificial. I might be in the minority, but it feels artificial because if you look at everything, and we did say it last week, right?
Yeah.
The dollar is strengthening, right? The naira is strengthening. It just doesn't make sense.
Disconnect is wild. Yeah. Talks about being in a global
It doesn't make
economy
sense.
that is a strong dollar environment, and yet we're getting the strength.
You get-
I mean, I hear
guess
you on that point.
Your artificial is just the intervention.
Yeah.
So you're-
so no, that's not what I'm saying. I don't know.
Why don't you like saying that word?
I mean, but-
Why don't you like saying that word?
I don't know why,
Say,
but-
say how it. Say how it
I
is.
don't like that
Say
word.
it how it is.
we've seen FX reserve deep by $1 billion plus.
$2 billion.
Yes,
Well,
so
like
there,
2
there
billion,
was,
right?
there
Yeah,
was
that's
somebody,
2 billion
somebody
there.
explained that to me, and I can't explain it how the person explained it.
Then it's-
But
Why? This is drinks and mics. Like, why
What's
do you...
that? So my first boss said to me, if you can't if you can't explain an idea in one paragraph, it's a rubbish idea.
I can't.
So that means
It's just so the person basically explained it, and if you look at it plus and minus, it just kind of feels like intervention. There was a time there was too much. You took it out of the system, put it into this place, and then now it is needed back. You've taken it out and put it back here, so it looks like the FX has dropped. The reserves has dropped,
but it hasn't really.
It hasn't really.
But you put it somewhere else.
Yeah,
but you've used it.
Yeah,
but it hasn't dropped.
You kind of like.
I'm not smart enough, I guess. I'm not smart enough.
So understand that there's sometimes where
That sounds
we're
like
speaking,
Shasha, what you just
so they understand that there's sometimes we're speaking with a lot of nuance that we cannot speak the full, scope. So, but I think what the person was trying to say was that, there was a lot of FX that came into the market at a certain point, and the FX could not really just stay in the market, because if it did stay in the market, what we'll do was push Naira stronger. Because definitely, if there's so much FX going around the market, Naira will start to, strengthen. You might even see it come to 1.3 or something like that. But so instead of allowing that happen, you pull that dollar out of the market, keep it here, right?
And then
Where's
bring back
here?
when you need it.
Where is
bring
here,
it
by
back.
the way?
I don't know where here is, but
Why you
let's just say,
incomplete information?
I don't understand this.
Bring it
I am
here.
not going to explain that.
Where is here? Are you
pull
saying
it
that?
out.
I think you're making
are you saying
you're
that
making matters
we're
worse,
taking
Tunji,
money out of our FX reserves.
I did not
and putting
say
it somewhere.
that. I did not say
Where?
that.
That $20 billion
I just
hole in
said
MPC that Sanusi mentioned is sounding.
I just said it left there. It stayed
I
there. So
don't know,
now
that is now
that it
there.
is needed back again, maybe for many reasons. Somebody's trying to exit, somebody's trying to take their money out, whatever the reason is. You bring it back into the market. Now the gap now shows here, right? And now the gap shows here, and I think we've reduced by about 2 billion, right?
Yes.
So that's the 2 billion gap.
2 billion. The 2 billion
It's being
gap
used for
now.
something else.
Now the 2 billion gap now looks like a huge, like the foreign reserves has really dropped. But think about it.
But it's
If
still
you
there
just
being
took
used
money
somewhere
from
else.
here and put it here, and then you took money back and you put it here, right?
So are you suggesting that the central bank?
I'm not suggesting anything. I'm not suggesting because I do not know anything.
Tunji, tell the person to buy gold. Tell the person to just buy gold. Let's just increase our.
Okay,
Let's
so
just buy
if you're not
gold.
suggesting, let's just hear it. What exactly is the reason why external reserves deepen?
Again, the question you ask is why did they go up in the first place? Like what fueled them to go up, right?
Did you
Lot of
sell more
borrowing.
oil?
So there was Eurobond issuance.
FPIs,
in
of
December.
course.
Yeah.
You did
No.
2.2 billion Eurobond.
Yeah,
in
Eurobond.
December.
Yeah. Let's not
Maybe
forget
like
that.
August, $900 million domestic dollar bond.
So how did that get to
And
2
then a lot of
billion?
FPI.
Yeah.
The FPI were in billions. November, December, some January. And again, as we've said, if you're the FPI that came in November and you've made 20% plus in dollars in 2 months, you're out. So you've already, so some people are coming in.
So you're saying that FX went to
So if they are
guys
leaving,
that exited?
why is the exchange strengthening then?
No. I'm saying you
No,
have
they're
people
not
coming
leaving.
in. and
There are people coming in too.
people
Yeah.
leaving. Don't forget the reserves are dropping.
Yeah, but
So
we're still net $2 billion down.
negative.
Net negative.
So that's what you're suggesting.
the-
So
the-
went
the-
somewhere.
So the other thing not to forget is that, again, this is something that was never important for the past maybe 15 years. FX debt service of Nigeria is now $5 billion for this year.
Wow.
Right? So
Because of
it's
the
now
2025
Sometimes
maturity
that thing
coming in.
doesn't sit well in my head.
Yeah.
$5
principal
billion.
interest
Yeah.
on loans. And
Yeah.
Eurobonds,
5 billion.
And we have a
In
Eurobond
November,
repayment in November.
1.1 billion. So those numbers are, and they probably have they plan for it, right? So you don't hear any stories, right? So 5 billion is a material number, right? If you take that out in 1 year, how much are the organic flows coming in, right?
That's
So-
interesting, right? So that's
All right,
the
guys,
exits.
we gotta
and what's
move
the
on.
entry. That's very interesting.
We got to move on. During the week, Fitch pushed out a report and on Nigerian banking sector, and the suggestion was that they were looking at recapitalization. Essentially, I'm sure you guys probably read that report. And what kind of stuck out for me was them, claiming or suggesting that we're going to see tier 3 banks probably merge.
Why don't we have
been saying
them,
that for a
though?
while
Why
now.
don't we have that though, by the way?
Have what? Have
Who
what?
are tier 3 banks?
And that's what I was going to ask. So who are these tier 3 banks they're talking about? Because, I was looking at their
I think
chart.
they probably mean private.
So
privately owned banks.
No,
that
so
are
I was
less
looking
than-
at their charts. At the chart
Wait, so
here.
tier 1 banks are
Your Zenegitico,
Fugas.
Yeah,
Zenegitico, Access
then the
Bank.
tier 2 banks are the ones
All
just
this,
below them.
Yeah,
So we don't have the tier
Fidelity,
C bank.
Fidelity,
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm seeing Coronation, Jais, Wema,
everybody
else.
FCMB. I mean,
I
are
wouldn't
they
put Wema
classing
there.
them
So,
as
so
tier 3? So Wema
Wema's a tier
They're
2.
too big.
Wema's a tier 2. Yeah,
Wema is
a
a
tier 2.
tier 2.
No.
Very well tier 2.
FCMB.
They're
Tier 2. Sterling, FCMB, Wema.
They are flirting with that tier
Fidelity,
1.
tier 2.
FCMB is flirting with
I
tier
think
one.
Fidelity
Wema. I'm not
flirts.
saying FCMB. I don't know about
Wema.
Yeah, I'm not sure about it.
Wema, no.
No, Wema, no, yeah, but maybe Fidelity, maybe at some point.
But I think there's a place for, so the market, the customer segment of banks is fragmented, very fragmented. So there is the HNI customer who is very sophisticated, understands cash in, cash out, a lot of money in the bank account sitting there doing nothing, moving around, all of that. There's a tier 2 kind of customer who is the individual, HNI. The market starts to go down from there. There are the people who, at least from NDIC conversations, you hear about the fact that very few Nigerians have up to 500,000 sitting down in their account. There is a fragmentation of this banking industry, as we call it. Is there a need for a different kind of bank? I think that was what
What do you mean
microfinance
different?
banks were created for, but they've just directed themselves in a certain kind of way, that.
Tunji's going to come up with his informal economy stuff again.
Oh my God.
Just,
But
I
yes,
see where
that's
this is
what I'm
going.
going to.
Straight to the point.
He's
Like,
gonna come
that's
with
what I'm
informal
going to.
economy.
stickler for that stuff.
Yeah,
That's
he's
what
gonna
I'm going to. That's what I'm going to.
exactly.
That's what I'm going to.
As soon as I heard microfinance, I was like, here we go again.
So.
The informal economy. Let's capture it.
So let me go to the Ghanaian conversation.
Okay.
Right, Ghanaian conversation and pensions. So Ghana has a 3-tier pension system, right? So there's the big pensions, there's the middle, and there's the informal sector pensions, micro pensions, with Nigeria copied really. But unfortunately, in Nigeria, we still have a one-size-fits-all pension system. But the general thing is, though it has not worked fantastic in Ghana, because it's still the mandatory pension that is still doing which is the same thing in Nigeria.
Yeah, tier 1.
But you have now created a different kind of pension company that is focused on a certain type of customer, that is focused on their AUM, is focused on their reserves, building their the asset base, and basically has to work around those conversations. Unfortunately, it's not worked out as it should work. But I think banking needs to work in that
but the problem with that sort of stuff.
not microfinance bank, because microfinance bank was supposed to do this, but microfinance bank has now become a lending model. At least that's what I see it from. It's become a lending model where if I am going to open a microfinance bank, I'm already thinking of a microfinance account. I'm already thinking about a loan that I will need in 6 months' time. Or maybe that's even the reason why I'm opening the account to begin with. Do you get? So I want to, finance one, machine, and then the account officer comes and tells me, oh, just open the account, we'll give you the money, and when I give you the money, I'll give you 5% every month, but there needs to be full financial services for people who are not structured. I don't know how to.
I understand what you're saying, but
fully
sometimes the problem
structured.
with that thing is I haven't looked at it here, but I've looked at it in Ghana, is data. Right, is data is a problem. Just collecting information.
I think that's
if you bank with me and you're informal, so you don't have a registered address. It's how do I know where to find you? How do I know who you are?
What does my guy in Ladipo, for instance, do? So my guy, I don't mean my guy. I don't really have a guy. I'm just saying somebody in Ladipo. He sells Toyota spare parts, right? He's doing turnover of maybe 100 million every month, right? Maybe forget what his profit margins are, but he's doing 100 million profit turnover every month. Which bank is actually catering to that guy in Ladipo? Understand that.
Yeah, I understand.
Understand that
I agree. Yes.
Fugas banks will treat him like he's treating you, right? So if he wanted to ask for credit, right, and he goes to the bank, they'll be asking him for his salary account, and they'll be trying to model him as against somebody that works in a structured organization.
Yeah.
And when they can't find that structure, they start to look for a model that is similar to it. But really, his cash flows are around how much he sells The fact that people from around the state basically rely on him for Toyota spare parts, and he will continue to be that source of Toyota spare parts to the rest of Lagos, right? Or at least one of them. So how do you model banking to cater to that kind of customer is what I think microfinance banks were created to do. But somehow it's just not done that.
Yeah.
All right, back to the recapitalization conversation. Are we supposed to be worried about the Fitch report, or because they're suggesting that some of the tier 3 banks might find it difficult to perhaps recapitalize ahead of the CBN deadline, which I think is next year.
For me, I actually think recapitalization is a good thing. It takes banks to another level.
I know, but are they going to meet that
I'm not
target
worried
for some of those banks, or
where's the money going to come from?
mergers?
So on the smaller one, okay, sorry.
Yeah, I think the reason what they are saying is pretty obvious, right? So if you're a big public bank,
And you can make it.
you can definitely raise
You're fine,
money,
yeah.
right? What they're talking about are privately owned banks, particularly those who started relatively recently. If you got a commercial bank license,
Name them, which privately owned banks.
they're getting many. There are almost 40 banks in Nigeria.
It's like all these
too many banks.
I'm not
alternative
sure
globals, all those ones that they want.
No, I'm saying those.
Because is it the private owned bank? Is it banks that are not
think-
listed?
So
or-
from that list is either merchant, who used to be 15 billion and is now 50.
Okay.
Can you bridge 15 to 50? Many merchants were already at 30 anyway. So they can probably bridge 30 to 50. So they have, okay. Share capital, not shareholders funds. So some of them are at 8, right? Going from 8 to 50 is a bit difficult.
Yeah, it's steep.
But the ones that are worse off are those, you got a commercial banking license 2 years ago, 25 billion. To be national commercial is now 200. Now going from 25 to 200
Is huge.
Yeah.
right. So those are the ones that they've said will downgrade license to regional, right? So which is 50. So you're now going from 25 to 50. And so if CBN allows you remain where you want to be, because it's a bit tricky going to regional. Sometimes they don't want to be based in Lagos, it's a regional bank.
Which I think is where the conversation of tier 3 banks comes into play.
No, what I mean by tier 3 is non-big, because bear in mind what we call tier before. I mean, you're mentioning some banks like Wema. I mean, these are banks with 2 trillion plus balance sheets. They're not small banks at all. And they can raise capital.
But tiers are usually in terms of share capital anyway. So So the point is, if we say we can only have a universe of tier 1 and tier 2 banks, so
What
is it
happens to
very
the
likely that
people
the tier
who
3
can't?
ones will be swallowed at some
Exactly.
point?
So
because that's what it seems like. And are you ruling out any potential merger between a tier 1 and a tier 2 bank happening anytime soon? Because I think it's likely to happen.
No, there's no. Again, if you look at the growth in particularly the tier 1 banks, their year-over-year growth, or the very light tier 2s, their growth is so large that they don't need any combination to keep growing.
It's the tier 2s that probably have to
the
merge
problem
together.
is those people who, you say you are even if you are a
So
regional,
can tier 2s merge?
even if you are a regional and you're 10 billion and you have to go to 50, now maybe you can raise it if you are well connected and if you're running for a few years. I think there's almost an inverse relationship with those who will merge and how old they are. Because if you started your bank, 1 year ago with 10 billion and now they're telling you to bring 50.
So I also think I think the problem with the tier 2 conversation also, maybe not tier 2. I think the fear for a lot of those banks would be to fall into the regional category, to become regional banks where you can only serve a certain category of customers, where you have a nationwide customer base. You don't want to lose your customer base in all the other regions, right? So is it possible to create? I don't know how
but that's not a big problem. The reality with banks is that, again, the national thing is, bear in mind, a bank like Wema at one point dropped their national license and went regional.
And still did fantastic.
And then they're back big time national, right? So I'm not sure it's a big deal. Bear in mind, regional means the region you are in, contiguous region, and Abuja.
So, by the way, I'm strongly biased on that conversation. So
but the reality is that
biased to what
discount that.
What conversation? What conversation?
No. So if you notice, I'm very pro Wema. There's a reason to it.
Anyway, we move on to another topic, and that's the increase in telco tariffs that we've seen happen already. MTN has increased tariff. I think I saw in the news somewhere that they mistakenly increased
Mistakenly.
data cost by 200%.
Mistakenly.
I wonder who
Mistakenly.
approved that press release
Okay.
that I saw. There was just one funny press release that sounded Gen Z-ish. Not
Yeah,
sure why
say
they put that
something
out
like,
there.
"We're sorry."
We don't mess up. I don't really know. Like, I mean, I don't know who did that. But anyways,
I saw a response to that, right? Somebody on X replied with "they play." If you know what this means in colloquial terms, it's a they play, and he was in another telco's office signing.
I really don't know. I mean, but we've seen a response from NLC claiming that they were going to down tools and all of that and go on strike. Is NLC overrated? Do we still need them, Egie? Like, is it something we should? I mean,
Well, they have to latch onto something, but
Do they
I
have
think,
the heat to
50% increase after 12 years, I'm not sure there's much argument there.
they don't have a case, isn't it?
There's no case there.
Tunji.
They didn't go on strike when Band A went times 3 or something.
They didn't threaten to go on strike and then they sort of shut them down.
So I think if anything, I have consistently seen that they've become very so the people do not trust them as much as they used to. I do remember Labour in Nigeria. In my lifetime, Labour has shut down Nigeria. I remember times under President Olusegun Obasanjo where we would stay at home for almost a week, right? On petrol prices, We'll have conversations. And what we've now come to is the place where there'll be threats of a strike.
And then all of a sudden there's
the
nothing.
night before, around 3 a.m.
But I think that
Then in the morning, people will now be wondering, should I go to work? Should I not go to work? But I think the general context with Labour itself is that people just do not trust it as it used to. But I think also it's also the question of why are you threatening strike action? Power has gone up. You've advocated for labor increase, right? Labor costs to increase, the minimum wage. You advocated for it. So this company is going to pay higher wages, pay higher NEPA bills, pay higher petrol prices, and still keep the revenue at the same cost. Come on.
Yeah.
You really have to.
But the strike is over telco, right?
You really
But
have to
We
be
talked about
drinking a
this.
lot.
We talked about this in a few shows ago.
Yeah.
How much does this impact your food your consumer baskets?
Yeah.
So how serious should we take this, guys, in terms of this strike being over telco? So telco might not be a big cost to you, but what is the telco expense to your daily life?
So it's
and maybe
big
that's
for a lot
that's
of,
where
it's big
exactly.
for a lot
So
of
maybe we
people.
From a
shouldn't
weighting
be.
point of view, it's
Yeah.
probably just
So maybe
over
we
1%
shouldn't.
or so.
Yeah. So
So it's big for a lot
the
of people.
CPI.
But
Yeah.
what I believe is that if you as an organization pushed for increase in labor prices, the minimum wage,
yeah.
you advocated that it moved from 30%.
So you have to be ready to pay up with everything. Is that what you're saying?
You need. I think there are smart people in labor, right? And this is the general thinking. You're smart people in labor. If you increase salaries from 30,000 to 70,000, something is going to pay for it. It just doesn't come out of the blue, right? Something is going to pay for it. It's not going to be shareholders' funds, right? People are not going to bring in money from outside just to pay salaries. So what is going to pay for it? It's likely going to be from revenue. And it's either the increased revenue, and it's been a while telcos increased revenue.
It's almost 12
In
years.
fact, if you've ever gone anywhere in the world, buy data in the UK, in Ghana, buy airtime in Ghana, you compare side-by-side prices in Nigeria, you do realize that we are paying a lot less, right? And that is because, of course, we've been able to keep prices at what they are. So my thinking is we are long overdue for this increase, but labor needs to be labor, right? What would labor be if they didn't? I mean,
All right, guys. So we'll just.
I'm
end.
pro labor, by the way.
Oh, okay. Don't worry, we'll get there. We've seen a number of results pop out, and this is just the last topic, really. Just as we're on set, Nigerian Breweries numbers came out, and I just want to ask Egie his own opinion. And why is this important? I mean, FMCGs have been hard hit badly last year because of FX, and it's been interesting seeing how they're all trying to get out of this situation. And we've seen Nigerian Breweries results, and as much as they still posted losses, we're seeing record revenue growth. So year on year, these guys have basically done 80% growth to about 8 trillion naira in terms of revenue. Significant number.
But then,
so, and I think from what we gather, this was also driven by increase in volumes and increase in prices. So, what's your take on their results, and what's the far-reaching implication for the FMCG sector in general?
Well, I think the important variable in their results to me is the Q4 performance, because I think they've lost money for 5 consecutive quarters, 2 quarters in 2023 and 3 quarters in 2024. So it looks like they've turned the corner in terms of going from loss-making quarters to profitable one, because the FX losses were 0 more or less in Q4.
So you're saying this is the last bad quarter?
No, this is the first good quarter.
This is the first good quarter
After 5 bad quarters. And it's most likely that many other companies in their situation, which is huge FX losses because of FX liabilities, are also in the same situation where they're turning around, right? So we'll know. I mean, MTN releases results, I think, next week or so.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
I was going to, yeah.
But what I think is interesting in their case is that they've basically taken out the FX debt. A number of the FMCGs converted the FX debt to equity. I don't think MTN did that, but it means that they don't really have that FX risk going forward, at least on the short term. So irrespective of where FX goes, they're not going to have this huge FX loss, and that means they can go back to full year profitability. The big question is around dividends. They have huge negative return earnings. They can't pay dividends, and at what point do they fix that?
So do you think Nigerian Breweries is out of the woods yet? Still got a long way to go.
I think operationally they are. I mean, they fixed their balance sheet, no big FX debt. They're making profits on a quarterly basis. So they just have to dig themselves out of a very deep, almost 170 billion negative return earnings.
So what would you be telling a shareholder of Nigerian Breweries today?
Hold. Or buy.
Would you buy if you didn't have?
I would.
So you think the turnaround is now?
Yes, I think.
Okay.
It's
But
all
Nigerian
up
Breweries is a solid company, though. It's a solid company.
Yeah, it's solid company.
If you
solid product.
extract,
you have to separate the company from the stock.
Yeah.
The stock was
Stock
170 in 2013. Is 35 now.
Yeah.
Right? So,
But the question
And I
is,
remember when that stock was like a $10 billion market cap or $9.something billion market cap back.
Okay,
Back,
dollar.
yeah,
back then.
dollars
very
back.
massive.
so what,
Yeah, and
what's
then-
the
but when you
conversation
watch-
around dividends, though?
It's the same.
So they have a negative return earnings,
and you
at the
can't pay
moment.
dividends if
And
you
so,
have negative
you
return
can.
earnings. And many of these companies have that. Right?
Yeah.
It's not just them.
But there's a way out though. They can basically set off their return earnings against their share premium. They have a share premium of about 600 billion.
If you have the share premium,
They do have a share premium of 600
All those
billion,
who issued equity last year, you will have share premium. Yeah.
Oh,
But it's not that straightforward to do. I mean, as I said, it's quite an involved transaction. But it is a solution, I mean, technically. But some might not want to do it because it has huge tax costs also.
And another bit of concern as well for Nigerian breweries is I see that, in terms of trade payables, they have over 400 billion in trade payables, and suggesting that working capital is probably a stretch for them. And I mean, compare that to trade receivables, which is just slightly around 52 billion. So, I mean, looks like they're also riding on credit, essentially.
Well, I mean, more power to them. If they can get payables that are not interest bearing, if they went to the bank to borrow that money, it'll cost them 30-something%. Right?
Yeah.
So again, I haven't really dug into those details, and it'd be nice to know what is inside. Who are those payables to?
So I'm sure Guinness is watching as well. What do you think they'll be thinking? What will be going through their mind as they're seeing what's going on? Because I mean, their numbers were out a few weeks ago, and they also put out their first quarterly profit as well. So they're seeing what's happening with Nigerian breweries, international breweries. What's the next play?
Well, I think, I'm not too familiar with Guinness numbers. I think their revenue is about 200-something billion. I mean, it's 1 trillion. I mean, the gap in size is huge.
It's huge.
The question is it narrowing or is it widening? I haven't done that analysis, but 1 trillion is a big number. I think they're the first brewer or drinks company to go that big. Right?
But with all these volumes I'm seeing, do people actually still drink beer? When was the last time?
Yeah, I mean, clearly-
when was the last time we had a beer?
Not in a while, actually, when you think about it. But clearly, the numbers show that they do, right? Price times volume
Well,
on the
I'm
revenue
asking
side.
you,
So,
when was the last
oh,
time
me
you had
personally,
beer? Yeah.
oh gosh, I don't know.
Eggie, when was the last time you had a beer?
I don't know. Because you're right, yeah.
No, but the
So who's drinking the beer then?
No, but the question is, what is the
People are drinking beer now. How about?
No, but the
How
product.
I'm just asking.
yeah, but like that's what I'm saying. The numbers show that people are drinking beer,
No, but the question
it's
is-
probably just a change of lifestyle.
But what percent of their revenue is non-alcoholic? Right.
Okay.
Because
So what's driving Guinness's revenue at the moment?
as I said, I think they are 40% malt.
Malt.
40%, yeah. So I'm just saying that these companies over time will just become
And
beverage companies.
Guinness did buy a few emerging brands that basically fit into the price profile of a lot of Nigerians. So things that they can easily afford. So maybe they might not be able to afford the premium brands, but they can afford the lower cost brands. So it does work for a lot of people.
Okay.
So as long as you can sell many of the smaller brands, it still works for
So
you.
I think that's the same for all the brewers, international breweries and Nigerian breweries. They did a lot of acquisition of regional brands, and they've retained those regional brands. So if you go far out of Lagos, you probably will see a totally different set of brands.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So outside Nigeria, there are brands that
Outside
will
Lagos.
shock you.
Lagos.
Sorry,
Yeah.
outside Lagos, you see brands that will shock you completely.
So I read something in the news recently, and it was called the Ozempic effect on alcohol.
Okay.
Yeah. So essentially, the point is that the rise in the usage of Ozempic for weight loss is negatively impacting
Oh, really?
alcohol consumption globally. Yeah, it's just
Why
Google
did
it. It's
I
out
think
there.
it
Globally,
was,
but in
So what is it?
how many
Ozempic
people-
stops you
how
from
many people in
drinking?
Nigeria can afford Ozempic?
as
don't know.
in,
That exchange
no.
rate.
What's Ozempic? by the
Once
way?
you take
Is it
Ozempic,
something
you-
you use? Because I seem to know a lot
So
about
does
these things. That's what I'm
Ozempic stop
asking.
you from drinking?
No, my Tunji knows a lot about these
No.
things. So let him explain it. Like Ozempic, what does it mean really? Like, what does it do?
So basically, it's therapy to lose weight. It basically helps you lose a lot of
Have
weight.
you tried it before?
No, I'm gaining weight. So if anything,
So, like,
I know,
I'm,
you
so-
need it.
I hope I don't. But Ozempic is this is so funny. I was listening to a Stan Druckenmiller a podcast today. He was talking about Ozempic, and he does this investment style, which I also do, which is invest then investigates. So if someone tells you an idea, it sounds like a good idea, you put some money in, then you're
drives
more
your
driven
interest,
to, and I
yeah,
do that a
to-
lot.
to
so
learn about it.
So he was talking about this Ozempic, and he said if you know Americans, if you go to Disney World, everyone's pretty much a lot of people are obese, and when you're on Ozempic, you can't get off of Ozempic. And he was talking about how that's a good investment. So it's just interesting that you mentioned that now, and I think this is maybe I should
So
look
are
into
you
this.
You're shotting beer and long.
Long Ozempic, simple. Anyone
So
else? Any takers?
First of all, in the conversation around brewery companies in Nigeria, anybody that can afford to take Ozempic
Yeah.
is definitely not
A beer
in
drinker.
They might be a beer drinker, but they're not in the conversation of profitability for a Guinness or Nigerian breweries. They are not drinking enough beer because they will be drinking other things, right? Because that means you have a lot of disposable income. The people who we're really speaking to about the profitability for these companies are maybe in Lagos, but we're talking about the lower sides of,
Consumers.
consumers, as in disposable income, and also outside Lagos. Outside Lagos, a lot of the premium brands are not really as popular as they are in Lagos. So in Lagos, that there are some, maybe 3 or 4 brands that we know. But if you go to Ibadan, for instance, you see maybe another 3 or 4. You drive further down to another part of the Southwest, you see another 3 or 4. You go to the East, it's a completely different 3 or 4.
Okay.
Right? So those are the brands that are really moving the needle for this brewery companies. And I don't think anybody that is drinking Ozempic is affecting the bottom line of Nigerian breweries or Guinness.
All right, guys, time is fast spent. So we will close now with our usual buy, sell, or hold. And of
Okay.
course, Arnold, I'll start with you first. You're my right.
What am I buying? What am I selling? What am I holding?
So, and I'm, of course, going to go through everybody. So, of course, Egie, buy is yes, holders.
You're not sure.
You're neutral. I mean, sell is no. You're against it. So, the world is a better place with Imperialists.
Oh Jesus!
buy, sell,
What a question.
What?
The
I
world is a
didn't
better
expect
place with
that.
Who are
Imperialists, like
Imperialists?
strong leaders.
Okay.
I mean, is the world a better place with strong leaders? For now.
Of
Buy,
course.
sell, or hold. It's just a simple
It's
question.
not simple.
Why?
It's not simple.
I
It's
mean,
not
China
simple.
is stronger now because we have
Yes,
a
actually,
very
yes, the
strong
world
president.
is. Thank you for
Russia
that.
is also strong.
Yeah,
mean,
I do think the world is, yes. I think,
so
especially when countries are going through reforms, you need a strong man, a strong leader, Lee
want
Kuan
a
Yew.
stronger Tinubu,
Yes.
basically.
I
Is that what
like
you think?
Tinubu. I like Tinubu how he is right now. This is
Stronger,
what Nigeria needs. Someone who
stronger.
pushes the reforms.
Yeah, he's never been
a
he's
Singapore
never
type.
been weak in-
We need to be there, and we're here. We need to make these changes to get there.
Eggie, buy, sell, or hold?
Hold.
Hold. You're neutral on this. Ooh.
That's a good one. I should have gone for hold.
Buy, sell, or hold.
I wish we had degrees of buy.
What was it someone said last time? Buy and sell. It was Tunji that.
I'm biased.
Because it works, right? You've seen countries where it works, right?
yeah.
So
I'm not leaning heavily
Buy, sell,
into
or
it.
hold,
I'm-
bro.
No, so buy, but I'm not leaning heavily into it.
Yeah.
But I kind of get why the idea makes sense.
yeah,
I think it's a sell for me, though. I mean, I don't think the world needs that.
No.
I don't
like a
think
liberal. We're all-
So I think-
let's do what we want.
always want
Flow,
opinions.
direction.
So I think
type.
I think the world has
do what you want.
has floated on the wings of do what you're feeling say for the last maybe 6-7 years, and it just needs a small correction, because just a tiny correction, and then we can continue. Just let everybody come back, to sense, and then we move forward again.
All right, we go on. Buy, sell, or hold. Nigeria needs its own Super Bowl.
Yes, bye.
Yes, bye.
Yeah.
But what is this?
Yes.
I don't know. Bye.
Yeah, bye.
Not necessarily American.
I mean,
Not
it's
Super
its
Bowl,
own
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
experience.
yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean now? Like
Yeah.
something that we can all just key into and it
Yeah,
just
100%.
keeps everyone.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes,
Sorry,
bye.
Sorry,
and you guys
Ugodre, you didn't
have
answer that
presidential-
question for yourself. An imperialist buy, sell, or hold.
I said sell.
Did he? Oh,
Yeah,
my ADHD kicked in. I went somewhere
Very
else.
sad self.
I said sell.
All right.
So we'll move on. Buy, sell, or hold. MPC cutting rates.
Hold.
What, buy to them cutting rates?
Oh, buy, sell, or hold. MPC holding rates. Let me just rephrase that.
Yeah, I mean, I think they hold. So I buy. I'm buying them holding rates. Yeah.
Buy, sell, or hold. MPC
Buy.
holding rates.
Buy.
Bye. We're all bye.
Yeah.
There's nobody
I think
that
they'll cut rates.
there's
I'll sell.
nobody
They don't
that
cut
is
rates.
against buy.
Yeah.
That's aggressive.
Why?
From hawkish to super dovish.
It's too early.
I mean, if they were going to hold it. I had MPC earlier. but anyways.
Especially with the kind of run you've had, and now it's
Oh yeah, I
turned-
see. You're
it's
saying
turned
if
a
they were
small
going to
corner.
hold, there was no point in moving it, MPC
my point.
because they cancelled it and moved it to March, and then yeah, well,
I
I
mean-
see your point, but I still think they hold. I still think they hold.
Oh, okay. So we'll move on. We're almost done. Buy, sell, or hold. We don't need labor unions when you're undergoing
I'm staying away from this one.
When you're undergoing
I'm
reforms.
staying away from
I
this.
mean, it's buy, sell, or hold. You can hold.
When you're undergoing reforms,
If you're undergoing reform, it's not
so
about
this is why
NLC.
this is why
This is not about NLC
this is why you
or
need a
TUC.
strong man. This is why you need a strong man politician because he will explain, guys, this is where we're going. So just chill for a minute,
Nah.
right? So
So there's a reason.
it goes
why-
back to my buy strong man politician.
So if you're undergoing reforms,
Yeah.
you don't need labor unions. That's a buy for you. I like your answers. I like
Thank
those
you.
bold answers.
Thank you. Yes, say as it is.
Egg is thinking.
I think hold.
So you feel like, okay, you're neutral about this.
Yeah.
I gotta eliminate this hold from this buy sell. Let's gotta be buy sell. So you buy sell or hold?
I'm sell. I always think for all the inadequacies of labor in Nigeria, particularly, they still are important for checks and balances, even if it is for just
He's
the
a man of the
noise.
people, isn't he?
Even if
He's
it's
a
just
proper
for
man
the
of the people.
noise
I'm realizing
value,
that. It's taking me a
even
few
if it's
shows
just
to
for the
learn.
noise value,
Yeah.
they are important at
Engineers
least
is one of
to.
those guys that the NSAR's like in front of them, like
Yeah, proper man of the people, man. I see a political career ahead of you. Man of the people.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
buy for me, bro. Like, it's a pure buy for me. I don't think I'm not buy about you going into politics, by the way. Buy
No,
about,
I'm not going into politics.
buy
No.
about buy sell or hold. I think when you're undergoing reforms,
Yeah.
strong reform, very harsh.
Some
reform.
people
Very
just
hard
hold.
to
Some people
do.
just
I don't think-
hold.
Somebody
I don't
needs
think-
to
I don't
hold
think
on,
you-
yeah.
You don't need unions. That's just me.
No.
Okay.
So I
Finally,
Yeah.
guys. Finally, FMCGs. Buy sell or
Buy.
hold.
Buy.
Buy
I'm
sell.
buy. I'm in the same boat. I think
agree, another buy.
the consumer story changes this year anyway. It's changing.
What's going to drive it then?
Lower inflation.
Lower inflation.
Lower inflation. One of the many drivers to
Again,
consumer confidence.
you're buying as well. Why?
Yeah.
It's just FX turnaround. The financials are turning around.
Yeah.
It's just recalibration.
Fundamentals are changing.
So the mood has changed and the profitability has changed. They've gone from losses to profits.
Are they cheap FMCGs at the moment? FMCG
They're
stocks.
cheaper,
I'm seeing
but
some of
cheaper
them are
ready
like-
to win,
so
right?
some
They're
of them are like
cheaper.
1 year highs at the moment.
Yeah, so that's where it gets tricky.
Yes.
Well, I mean, the 1 year
But if
high
you-
might not be the issue. The differential between the 52-week low and 52-week high, for some of them, they're like 2x, 3x. Those starts to get a bit tricky. If somebody's up twice the 52-week low is different. But you mentioned Nigerian Breweries. I think their 52-week low is maybe 21 or so. Yeah, 35. They're a bit up, but it's not that far up. So those who are not too far off, they have 52-week lows.
What kind of valuation metric will we use then? Because you can't just price earnings ratios, especially now that they're in losses. So what are they going to look at?
I think the reality in Nigeria is that the two metrics that are most important to you is absolute price and market cap.
Yeah.
The reality is that
Market cap wise, these
Market
guys
cap
are
or-
low.
is it market
These
no,
guys
but some
are
of them
low.
are very big now. When you have 1 trillion Nigerian breweries, and so the market cap
but
is
if you-
going up. But those, I'm just saying that the lower the price, the higher the potential return. The lower the market cap, the higher the potential return.
Yeah.
Tunji, buy, sell, hold FMCG.
By what he said, plus the innovation through acquisitions that a lot of this
That's another one. Yeah.
FMCGs are doing, because they realize that they do not have a wide enough product offering for the entire Nigerian market. At least one of the things we've continued to see about Nigeria is that spending is resilient. Yes, it might be reducing, but it is resilient. So people are still buying things. It's just that they're not buying what we thought they were buying 10 years ago. So what are they buying now?
Yeah.
So can we create what they're buying now? And a lot of the FMCGs are now, if they can't create those products, they just look around for companies that are already, producing those products and just acquiring them, and then putting part of their offering. And then with that, it's, increasing revenue. So I think, buy.
So buy for you.
And also, sorry, just to, because you talked about acquisition, there's something that I feel like we forget that we're seeing is this asset situation that's going on, where you're getting struggling local businesses, whether it's FX Play or and these are businesses that are owned by a parent company in the West, right? So there's this FX translation that they've gone through where finance cost is too high. Because they have to pay, I'm not sure if we talked about this, but they have to pay back loans to parent company in dollars. And the parent company is looking at the revenues coming in, right? Yeah. So there's that whole play of the East coming in, right? And these guys are paying more than these companies are trading on the markets. You've seen it in WAPCO, perhaps seen it in Guinness. There's a play there where you can actually come in and we look at some of these asset situations and say, hold on a minute, this stock is cheaper from a foreign perspective. It could be a potential acquisition. There's that strategy there. So in that sense, on a share price perspective, there's strong buys around.
All right, guys. This has been Drinks on Mic, episode 7, brought to you, of course, by Nairametrics. And it's been a very, very engaging discussion. And, I mean, I don't know. Looks like we've gone past an hour already.
I need to remind you what we said at the top of the show. There are 4 people drinking here, and 1 person does not have
Guess.
gin
I just gave it away
in
that I
their
am
drink.
drinking.
Guess who it is, and put it in the comment section.
All right, guys. Good to see you again.
You too.
Please, happy Valentine.
reach.
Happy Valentine.
Until we do this again next week, guys. Do have a props to do.
All right.